They're all.
I mean, the data.
That's a loaded question.
In fact, Pfizer just released yesterday their 6-month data now, showing how efficacious it is. That the effects last. They can say for 6 months. Because again, you can only say for as long as the group has been tested. But also again, that basically no serious side effects in the people that got the vaccine. Actually, there were more reported problems in the placebo group than in the vaccine group. So I think, again, the data is out there, it's safe, they weren't rushed, and this is really, when you pat yourself on the back as a society, our getting this vaccine out in the time period that we did, and when you look at how many millions of people have been vaccinated already, this is a pat yourself on the back moment for society. I mean, how probably we handled the virus in the beginning was not great, but what we're doing now, and as you look at other countries, we're the ones getting people vaccinated, and we really are doing a good job now.
And if you look at the timeline, this messenger RNA concept for the first vaccines that came out was actually conceived back in 1990. It's not a new concept. And the vaccine was actually developed about 10 years ago when MERS and SARS were in the Middle East. And that was pretty scary, but it didn't become a global pandemic. So they shelved that vaccine and then they retooled it recently. But the testing's been really rigorous from the beginning, and the data's really good. It's very safe. It doesn't cause sterility. It doesn't have a microchip in it. It doesn't change your DNA. It doesn't even get in your nucleus. So, and this messenger RNA, once it gives the information to your cell, is destroyed by your body and thrown out. So it's really safe and effective, and it wasn't rushed. Where the short circuit was, the government, you and I, underwrote these vaccines that appeared promising. Normally there'd be a big lag time between getting approval after you test it and prove it's safe and effective. Big lag time between approval and production and being able to produce millions of doses. The government stepped in, which is you and I, we funded it, to guarantee to allow them to start production right away before they even got approval, so that they would have millions of doses going out the door the minute they got approval. And so that's where the shortcut was taken. And it was a risk by the government that companies wouldn't have taken, but the government stepped in, and that allowed the promising ones that came out okay to be out the door quickly. So
I think it's a testament to our scientists and letting them do their job and what they're good at, and not bogging it down in red tape. They have the capability, the ability, and the desire to do so, and we let them do it, and I think it's been successful.
yeah. I've been working in the clinic almost every day, and I know lots and lots, thousands of people that have gotten the vaccine personally, and for the most part, they haven't gotten very sick with it. Now there's a few people that have, but it's very short-lived. It's 12 to 24 hours usually, although some people might say they were sick longer. It has to be better than getting COVID in most cases, and there's no ill effects long-term from the vaccine, short-term.
I mean, approximately 11% of U.S. deaths this year were from COVID.
Yeah.
The third leading killer after cancer and heart disease. Over 550,000 people are dead from COVID, not from the vaccine. 0.
Yeah. And you do every step in the world to take what to do what it would take to cure cancer or to treat cancer. So if you have something that's going to help you not contract this, why wouldn't you?
Right, we all want to get back to a normal life, and the vaccine is what's going to let us do that. That is the key to living life normal again.
Well, the question I would have is, how many people could even get in to register the first day? That's the question I would have. Now, you're keeping data on the people that are successful. Some of it's inherent on the system and how much capacity it has. We've noticed that in the past, when they opened up to 40 and up, the system would kind of have a little meltdown that day for a while, and it would quit working. And we were trying to use it in the clinic, and it would just bog down and not work for a while. And so, I don't know. I think.
I have a thought on that. I have a thought on that as from being a young person a long time ago to becoming a mother, to becoming a grandmother, and I think when you're young like that, you're egocentric and you have this perception that it's not going to happen to me. And then you have children and you learn, wow, my parents immunized me. I'm going to immunize my children because that's what you do to raise a healthy child. And I think at this point, a lot of those aged groups aren't parents and they're not of that mindset that they're protecting somebody else along with themselves. I think sometimes if you would ask that group, hey, if you had a chance to get this vaccine and it would help you to protect your parents and your grandparents and your uncles and your aunts, I think that they would look at it differently and might have a different thought in going ahead and getting vaccinated.
Agree, 100%.
A lot of the young people I've talked to, college age, teenagers, a lot of the college age kids were of the mindset for a while, I think it's shifted though, that if they might as well just go ahead and get it over with. Well, they don't understand that young people are having some serious long-term side effects, heart, lungs, kidneys, brain, central nervous system. You just don't want to get the virus, and that attitude's not very good.
And I think he's right on that. I think they pushed it out in the beginning that it was solely targeted towards the older population, and that was our population that was the only age group that needed to worry about contracting COVID. It was deadly to them. The rest of us will be fine. And I think they just don't understand that never having it is better than having it and having a mild case.
Yeah. Be patient. It'll happen. They have to test it first.
Yeah, good data just come out testing the 12 to 15 year group with the Pfizer vaccine, so it should be not too much longer until that gets FDA approval. And again, like Dr. Mormon said, just be patient. But again, being safe, wearing masks, socially distancing, and being safe. Because again, as Betsy had said, we're trying to protect more than just ourselves. It's the population as a whole. It's grandparents being able to interact with their grandchildren. There's a lot of other things to think about.
So parents should do it to protect other people, including their children.
Right
Yes.
Now they can get vaccinated. So that's the step they take then. And then at the time when it becomes available for their children, then their children should be vaccinated.
Because let's not forget, though a disease predominantly that is hospitalized those over the age of 60, I mean, there's more of these pediatric syndromes that are COVID related. I think people tend to forget about that, but that's a real problem out there.
And the other thing, no matter what age, the more people we get immunized, the closer we get to that herd immunity, which will protect all of us, whether we're immunized or not. It'll just decrease the pool of susceptible individuals and make the thing go away, or at least suppress it enough that we can move on.
We don't know yet.
No.
In fact, I mean, as said earlier, that studies basically, you can only go on what the data is, and now it's up to 6 months. There's predictions that because there's these variants circulating, again, as Dr. Mormon talked about herd immunity, the longer it takes to get herd immunity, the more chances are these other variants will grow in the population. We might need a yearly booster. I read a study recently, they had asked a group of epidemiologists, and 2/3 thought that we're going to need a yearly booster. But again, we don't know. It's kind of looking into the crystal ball right now.
Yeah.
But chances are the vaccine, I would hope, will show that it's good for at least a year. That's what we hope. But right now we can only say 6 months.
People have asked me that question in the clinic a lot, and I tell them my main mechanism for dealing with that right now is denial. Because we're working so hard to get all these vaccines out, I don't want to think that far ahead because it would be kind of tough on the morale. But the one thing we know, this is an RNA virus, not a DNA, it's a technical thing, but the flu is an RNA virus. And we know RNA replication, when it divides and repeats itself in the cell, when it infects your cell, and it divides and makes more of this RNA material, it's really sloppy, and it makes a lot of errors, and that's where the mutations come from. It's not a very neat process. Most of the errors end up with a virus that's not, it's kind of a dud and it doesn't work that well, but some of them end up being pretty effective and even more effective than the one that was dividing. So we can bet, because this tends to be more changeable than other kinds of viruses, the RNA type viruses, that we're just guessing, but we think it might end up needing a booster, but we just can't think about it right now. We don't know enough to even predict that. I think people that worry about that, they just don't need that kind of stress right now. They just need to kind of think of today, tomorrow, get the vaccine, try to
Right,
stay healthy.
and in a year from now, we ask you to get a flu shot every year, to get immunized for measles and mumps and rubella. It's more than a one-shot series. HPV is the same way. I mean, a lot of our vaccinations are multi-dose vaccinations, and if this is, it may be too.
Well, you need a tetanus shot about every
Right.
10 years
Every-
or so.
every so many years.
Your immune system wears down and kind of forgets about it, so. That's in the future, maybe, but let's not think about it. Yes, there's been some breakthrough cases, not locally. I mean, worldwide, there's some data that shows there's really low incidence. I mean, it's 94%
Yep.
effective, so it's not 100%. So you can get COVID still, although what they've shown is if you happen to get COVID and having had the vaccine, your likelihood of having severe illness, which includes death and hospitalization, is a lot less than it would have been otherwise. So, right?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
just
isn't
said in
it the data?
adolescence it's 0.
And they
Yeah.
also
They
have
really
shown,
didn't hear that.
they did a study recently that healthcare workers, since we've really gotten the vaccine out starting in December, they went back and looked at healthcare workers who are still in the trenches taking care of these sick people. The incidence on fully vaccinated healthcare workers is what, 2.5% of getting COVID now compared to what it used to be before the vaccine. So it's huge impact for people who are at risk.
You can never say anything's 100% effective.
No.
That's what we've learned. But again, as Craig said, less disease, and so I think a lot of times people are looking for reasons not to get vaccinated.
Mhm.
They're just not a good one when the
No.
vaccine's 95% effective at preventing illness, almost 100% effective against preventing serious disease.
And I think they take those few cases where you get vaccinated and a day later you get COVID. Well, that's because you were exposed to COVID.
Or incubating.
It had been incubating in your system, so it wasn't that the vaccine wasn't successful. It was that you already had
Right.
COVID and that you
Yeah.
just weren't aware of it.
Exactly.
And I think then they'll turn that into, oh well, look, I was vaccinated, but I still got COVID. Well, no, you probably had it beforehand.
The other
so,
thing to understand
before you
is
got vaccinated.
your immune system doesn't react immediately to, like say your first dose. 2 weeks or so later, you might have 75% efficacy maybe, but that's a pretty big gap there. You're not gonna go out tomorrow and mingle with everybody close quarters thinking the vaccine's taking effect, because it doesn't work that well initially.
And not everybody realizes that. And it's funny you bring that because yesterday, literally, I had a phone call with a friend in the morning who was talking about that his mother-in-law was getting vaccinated in the morning, and then she wanted to come over and see the kids. I was like, oh, pump the brakes a little bit on that one.
We had an effect. Yeah, we gotta let that kick in.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Just jokingly, we had some really elderly seniors a few months ago, and we're gradually getting younger people through the clinic, and I would kind of joke with some of these little ladies, and I'd say, now, don't go out on the town tonight. You know, they just were getting their first shot. I said, don't hit the bars tonight, or don't go on the town yet. And they just laughed. They go, oh, okay.
No.
I think if they
No.
had a serious anaphylactic response, serious
Mhm.
allergic response to the first dose, they probably shouldn't get any more doses. I don't think there are any other absolute contraindications.
No, and that would be the only real contraindication.
Yeah.
You know, because even with people who've had serious anaphylactic reactions to other vaccines, they say watch them more, which we've done. But, you know, we really haven't seen much of anything. So,
Yeah.
but given the fact that, as Craig said, you know, after one dose, you're pretty much 80%. It's been shown that it's pretty much 80% effective after one dose. I wouldn't push if they had a horrible reaction at the first one. I want to get a second one.
Right. That's probably good.
Some countries are just giving one dose.
No.
I think Great Britain, saying that 80% might be good enough. I would rather have 94%.
Yeah, so
So that second dose still with the 2-dose vaccines is
And
probably.
80% is a B. 94 is an A.
Yeah. Just-
But the most important thing, because again, we have Johnson & Johnson, which isn't that as effective, but you know, some of those lower risk groups, yes, would it be great if we give everybody the 95%, but the biggest thing is get a vaccine.
Yeah.
That is how we get COVID behind us in the rearview mirror.